It was a gray morning. The air hung heavy with anticipation as people filed into the courtroom, their murmurs filling the room like static. The courtroom was just like any other, polished. Wooden benches, a gavel resting silently on the judge's desk. But what happened that day was anything but ordinary. In the defendant's seat sat a man, weathered but dignified, wearing the kind of look you'd expect from someone who had spent 4 long years waiting for justice. His name was Marcus Carter, a 39-year-old father, husband, and pillar of his community before his life was torn apart. For years ago, Marcus had been wrongly accused of a crime he didn't commit, a robbery gone. Wrong that ended in tragedy. A case of mistaken identity, they said. He had always maintained his innocence, but the system had failed him, sending him to prison while his family fell apart outside. And now, sitting beside him was his wife, Jasmine. Tears brimmed in her eyes, threatening to spill over as they had countless times before. For years, for birthdays missed, for Christmas mornings where their daughter Ava had asked why her daddy wasn't coming home. Ava, she was 7 now, the little girl with the big brown eyes who had sat quietly in the back of the courtroom for days, watching, waiting. Today, though, something was different. Today, Ava was no longer content to sit quietly. As the judge, a stern but fair woman named Judge Elaine Monroe, prepared to move the hearing forward, Ava stood. Her small frame seemed to grow as she cleared her throat. The courtroom fell silent, and every eye turned to the child who had just done the unthinkable. Your Honor, Ava began, her voice trembling but determined. Can I say something? The judge, caught off guard but intrigued, motioned for Ava to step forward. Her tiny shoes echoed against the cold, hard floor as she approached the bench. Jasmine tried to stop her, whispering for her to sit down, but Ava didn't listen. She was on a mission. Ava clutched her favorite stuffed bear tightly as she looked up at Judge Monroe. My daddy didn't do it, she said, her voice breaking. He's not a bad man. He's my hero. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The judge leaned forward, her expression softening. Why do you say that, sweetheart? She asked gently. Ava's little hands gripped the bear tighter. Because my daddy tells me to always tell the truth. And he told me he didn't do it. I believe him, don't you? Marcus' eyes welled with tears as he watched his daughter stand up for him in a way no one else ever had. Jasmine's quiet sobs grew louder, and even the courtroom clerk dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. But Ava wasn't finished. We don't have him at home anymore, she said, her voice quivering. Mommy cries every night. I cry too. But Daddy always says to be strong. He says the truth always wins. She looked directly at the judge, her gaze unwavering. Can you please help us? Please? Judge. Monroe sat back in her chair, visibly moved. It wasn't every day that a 7-year-old girl broke through the cold machinery of the justice system with nothing but the truth and a plea for fairness. But it was what Ava said next that changed everything. I prayed every night for 4 years, she said softly. I prayed for someone to listen. Will you listen? The judge, fighting back her own tears, nodded. I'm listening, she said. And with that, she ordered an immediate review of the evidence, something no one had thought to do for long years. What unfolded over the next few hours shocked everyone in that courtroom. A single piece of overlooked surveillance footage, blurry but clear enough to identify the real perpetrator, had been sitting in the evidence locker all this time. It showed a man with a similar build to Marcus, committing the crime while Marcus was miles away at work. The oversight was devastating. A clerical error, a rush to judgment, a system that had failed at every turn. Judge Monroe was livid. She ordered Marcus' immediate release and called for an investigation into how such a grave mistake could have happened. As Marcus was led out of the courtroom, a free man at last, he dropped to his knees and hugged Ava, holding her as if he'd never let go. The aftermath of the case was explosive. Marcus filed a $20 million lawsuit against the state, not just for the 4 years he had lost, but for the emotional trauma inflicted on his family. He spoke openly about the pain of being separated from his wife and daughter, about the nights he lay awake in his prison cell, wondering if the truth would ever come to light. But Marcus didn't stop there. He used his platform to shine a light on the countless others who had been wrongfully convicted, those who didn't have a 7-year-old angel to plead their case. His story became a rallying cry for justice and reform, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. And Ava, she became a symbol of hope, proof that even the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. In the end, it wasn't just the evidence that set Marcus free. It was the courage of a little girl who refused to stop believing in her father, who dared to speak up in a world that often silences the innocent, because sometimes all it takes is one voice to change everything. If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from and leave a 100 in the comment section, because you are the type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos.